good afternoon, maybe now good evening. I don't know. Dark is outside, so possibly good evening. Welcome all of you on the Faculty of Political Science, National Studies, University of Warsaw. In this beautiful place, usually when we have some events, I said a few words about this place. And because this aula has named Jan Baszkiewicz, this is our mentor and our great professor of political science. But second hand, something is strange on the left side, is the piano. And everybody asks, what is doing the piano on the Faculty of Political Science and National Studies? This is very important because in this aula I have a class as Frédéric Chopin, and we connected the life of Frédéric Chopin to our place. And of course, our faculty is a few disciplines and also is a lot of sub-disciplines, and one of them is European study. Today, on behalf of the Renata Minkowska-Norkiene, who is in charge of today's panel, today discuss, we met to talk about European Union of today and tomorrow. Oh, sorry, we talk in the faculty a lot of times about European Union, basically what will be tomorrow, specific on the green area. This is the very big issue for us on our faculty. And we talk a lot about that, what will be next, what will be happened. Especially when you think about tomorrow, when we have the protest in the city, we talk about what happened, and we need to all our classes put online because it's also connected with European Union about this situation which is happened now. I hope that will be your topic today, that will be topic on today discussed. And I wish you very good discuss, very good questions and better answers, because discuss without these two things is impossible. I hope that you have a good chance, a good opportunity to talk about the future of the European Union, but not only European Union. I think they're talking about all Europe, because the contest is not only about European Union, but also about different countries who will possibly participate in European Union in the future. But how we know that about NATO, so that the step by step maybe will be very, very quick. Just a second, I give a floor for Małgorzata Kopka-Piątek. Thank you very much for the subtitles. I am feeling like Joe Biden. Thank you for the subtitles, and I wish you good discuss and good answers. So welcome, you are the faculty, and floor is yours. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for hosting us here at the university and at the Faculty of Political Science and International Relations. It's a pleasure for me to be here. This is also my favorite room at the university, so it was nice that you give us the opportunity to meet here. Welcome. I want to welcome you on behalf of the Institute of Public Affairs, where I'm heading the program for European and Migration Policy, and I will be also heading today our debate with our distinguished guest, with Mr. Ambassador Jan Truszczyński, Professor Renata Minkowska-Norkiene, and Sebastian Schäfer. It is indeed very important not to talk about how the Europe looks today, but to look forward, to have the foresight about the future, because we want all the future be bright and happy, but we know that there are some gloomy times and developments all around us, especially in Europe, especially also in our direct neighborhood. But as we are aware, in the last year also the gloomy point on European map for some, so we all know how important it is to discuss. Just to keep talking, to be part of the European discussion. That why we are so happy that we are having Sebastian Schäfer from the Institute for Danube region and Central Europe. Sorry for I try to remember the name, that you are here with us, Sebastian, and the institute is from Vienna. You are from Germany originally, so we are very keen to hear your perspective. I will give the floor to you in a minute. On behalf of the Institute of Public Affairs, some of you might know that we are also making our research and providing you with sometimes statistics, sometimes with more than statistics, with our analysis and recommendation for authorities, for civil society. How to manage this country and how to manage the European Union to make it a better place for everybody. And today we will speak about both, about the reforms of the European Union, but also about the enlargement of the European Union, which is also very hot debated topic. And we all know this. Two topics are debated very hot together. And why is that? And should it be like that? We will it will be part of our discussion. Without going into the topic now, this is not my role of today. I will ask Sebastian Schäfer, the head of the Institute for Danube region and Central Europe, and to come here for the introductory statement. Sebastian will introduce us into the topic, and then with Mr. Truszczyński and Professor Minkowska-Norkiene will have a debate among us. I will just give us the microphone, ask some questions, but what is also important for us for today is to give you, our audience, the opportunity to comment, to ask questions about the topic of today. So, thank you again, and I wish all of us a nice evening with the discussion about Europe, and give the floor to you, Sebastian.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much first of all, for the interest, for showing up during the weekday that late. But then, of course, first and foremost, a big thank you to Renata, to Gosha, to Sonia, but also to Malvina, who is working with me at IDM, who have been organizing this event together. It's a great pleasure for me to be here. It's an honor, actually, to be here. I am the director of the Institute for the Danube region in Central Europe, or IDM for short. It's much easier, which is a think tank that works for 70 years on the Danube region. And we have in total 19 target countries, and one event was organized in each and every country last year in our anniversary year. I didn't have the chance to come to Warsaw, so I'm very happy that I can do that now. And to be at the University of Warsaw is also something special for me, because I've had lectures in the three other Visegrad countries, but Poland was still missing for me. So it's coming full circle. And then with this wonderful topic, during the pandemic, I have read Stefan Zweig's The World of Yesterday again. And within that, I developed an idea that I called The World of Tomorrow. And when I saw the title, I was especially excited because actually, when we talk about the European Union, we often talk about its history and the current challenges, but far too seldom we talk about the future of the European Union. And therefore, with this great title, I'm very happy to give a few words of input before we then start off the discussion. And basically, as Gosha already mentioned, the idea of enlargement, but also treaty reform, is something that has, for the most part of the history of the European Union, been going together. We, at a certain point, have, for whatever reason, been decoupling, deepening and widening. And if you remember, the Juncker Commission started out its term to say there will be no enlargement in my term, which is a very strange thing to say at the beginning, that what is not going to happen. So rather, we should talk about what should be happening. And the best time actually to talk about a treaty reform would have been after Brexit. Because Brexit in itself was, of course, a shock to the system, but also had a consequence of 3 separate but interconnected tasks that we should have done. We only fulfilled 2. We needed to decouple the connection between the European Union and the United Kingdom. We needed to find a new basis for cooperation in the future. And the third part would have been to talk about how are we working together in the European Union when for the first time in its history, someone left the EU. We didn't do that. We weren't brave enough. The second best time, actually the latest time to my argument, would have been to do it in the conference of the future of the European Union. There was a year-long process. Can I get a show of hands who knew that this was happening? Okay, you can't see it on the video, but it's like 5 hands out of 50 people in the room, which is the normal rate that I get if I ask that question. So we start this year-long process, and then the Commission President Ursula von der Leyen was not brave enough to say what we do with this. Why is this not leading into a convent to talk about a treaty reform? Instead, the French President Emmanuel Macron hijacked the overall conference and proposed his European political community, which on the one hand is a good basis and produces nice pictures in the first 2 occasions. And the third occasion, it was already a challenge if we look at what has been discussed there. But for several reasons, and I'll come back to it at the end of my impulse, the European political community is subpar to a discussion about the treaty reform. And it's time now, it's high noon, so to say, to bring deepening and widening together again. When I did interviews on enlargement back in 2009 in the European Commission, they said that possibly the next members that would join would be Serbia and maybe also Montenegro, and it might be 2015. We have been talking about 2025 for the longest time now. Our promise that the Western Balkan countries at the Summit of Thessaloniki is of legal drinking age in the United States because we gave it 21 years ago. Not much has happened. And now we have a framework of 2030. Well, it's time to not give dates and then postpone them and not fulfill them. It's time to really aim for 2030. What is needed? If we look at the history, the way from the Treaty of Nice to the Treaty of Lisbon, which went through the treaty on a constitution for Europe that failed in the negative referenda in France and the Netherlands, plus the first draft of the Treaty of Lisbon was also rejected in a referendum in Ireland. The whole process took 5.5 years. So if we start now, even with many hiccups, we would be able to have a treaty reform if everything goes as it went in the last time until 2030. We also need to put things into perspective with regards to enlargement. We have 9 candidate countries that have a real perspective. The 10th one, Turkey, we probably at the moment for many reasons need to put aside. Unfortunately, I have to stress. But if we take these 9 candidate countries, the overall population of those 6 Western Balkan countries plus Ukraine plus Moldova plus Georgia is roughly 67 million inhabitants. You know who also has 67 million inhabitants? The United Kingdom. So we would just go back to a population size in the European Union that we've already had. Of course, we cannot economically compare the United Kingdom to those 9 countries. Of course, there will be challenges, but if you look back in history, and I promise this is the only time that I do a historic reference for this evening. If we look back in history, the predominant number of enlargement rounds were not for economical reasons. The predominant round of enlargement were to stabilize democracies. We started in 81 with Greece, 86, Spain, Portugal. We had even 1990, the German reunification. And then afterwards, 2004, 2007, 2013. So we also need to understand, and I think the United Kingdom is learning that very clearly, that the majority of economic relations happens in the vicinity, with your neighboring countries, within your regions. So having the possibility to negotiate free trade agreements all over the world, which was one of the reasons that Brexit was sold, might be something that is certainly the case. But if we look at the majority of the trade of the United Kingdom, still goes to Ireland, still goes into the single market. And this is always been the case, that an enlargement, a joining of the single market has provided economic opportunities for the countries that were already in the European Union. Germany pays twice as much into the budget as France, but profits twice as much as France from being part of the single market. So when we talk about net beneficiaries, we do not actually count the net, because I mean, it's simple math. Yeah, I'm a political scientist. I'm not very good with numbers, but I even understand I cannot get the same amount or more amount out of something that I have paid into something. So of course there will always be people who pay more into the budget, but the net calculation is a wrong assumption if you say, how much do I pay into it and how much do I get out of it? And remember the discussion about the Polish plumber. I remember the very funny advert that was done by the Polish Tourist Board, who made an advertisement of the Polish plumber saying, I stay in Poland, come visit. I don't know of any French plumber that went out of business because the Central and Eastern European states in 2004 were becoming part of the single market, were granted the freedom, the basic four freedoms. So ultimately, what I'm saying is, if we look at new candidate countries, maybe we should remember that and also see the opportunities and not only the challenges. If we talk about also a little bit Germany and Austria, as it has been mentioned, I'm Bavarian by birth, but I work now for almost 10 years in Austria. The German government currently has reform and enlargement in their coalition agreement. We know that the current state of the German government is not really something that fulfills promises, and it's not really delivering. But maybe we can remind them from time to time that if we do that often enough, we have seen also with regards to weapon shipments to Ukraine, and maybe if we remind them often enough, and I can't stress enough that also Poland should do that heavily and continuously, maybe something will move. In the Austrian Chancellery, we have been seeing talks of a treaty reform. I know that in general, it's a topic that what I learned from the last 2 days, where I had the opportunity to talk to various stakeholders and people here, that this is a rather delicate issue, as I understand now in Poland. But I think we should use the different arguments and talk about how we can maybe finally, as I said, bring back together the deepening and the widening. And if the negotiations about a new treaty fail, we still have the Lisbon Treaty. It's a very well-functioning treaty. It has the possibility with passerelle clauses, etc. And also one of the things that we've been talking about when we prepared this event, the qualified majority extension, use of qualified majority voting, is something that we could do. We could reduce the number of commissioners. We don't need a new treaty for this. This is all possible. It's all in the realm of the Lisbon Treaty. But this is the plan B, I would say. we should have a plan B. Because most of the time, unfortunately, the EU and its member states don't even have a plan A. But even if they have a plan A, they do not have a plan B. We need to become a proactive actor. The European Union is not even a geopolitical union. It would be enough to become a proactive union rather than a reactive union. Or to formulate it a little bit maybe populistic, instead of Spitzenkandidaten and Kandidatinnen, we should have Spitzenprograms. And finally focus on content again, or make content great again. And to sum up, there will be challenges, there will be bumps in the road ahead, but every journey starts with the first step, and we should take this first step. And to bridge the gap between a new treaty and enlargement, there is something that I have developed with Ulrich Schneckener over the past 1.5 years, which is called the Greater European Council, where we see there will be an upgrade to the European political community, because the EPC already failed in the 1950s. We need new ideas, we need bold ideas, and I'm very happy to discuss not only what I've been mentioned here, but also this idea. But I will not no longer hog the time here, and I'm very, very happy to start the discussion, and also look forward to your questions. Thank you very much again. Great honor to be here, and I'm looking forward to speak. Thank you.
Thank you, Sebastian. Thank you. Thank you very much for your remarks, for sharing your thoughts on the stance of European Union. And as I introduced when I said by welcoming, is that we are going to have a debate, so you can still share more of your views with our panelists, but also with the audience. So I will suggest that we will have now the debate, and if you have questions to Sebastian about his speech, please notice them, put them down, and ask when we start the Q&A session after the debate in the plenary here on the panel. So not to interrupt, the whole process. And as I said at the beginning, I'm very flattered to have Renata Minkowska-Murkiene and Mr. Truszczyński with us. I will ask you to comment, of course, on what was said by Sebastian, and I will ask you the first question is, what do you think is really now the time to speak about the EU reforms?
Thank you very much also for the invitation. Well, if there is a time, there is never a good nor a bad time to discuss anything. Like whenever I hear from the Polish journalists, is it a good time to deal with abortion now? I mean, there is elections, and then there are other elections, and then the third election. So there is never a good time, which basically means there is always a good time. So that's answering the first question. But I see really many of my students here, and I'm not sure if they are fully aware of what's actually at stake here and what this reform provides for. So I'll do what I usually do when my students ask me, because in the history of the European integration, whenever I explain to my students, okay, all these treaties, what did they actually bring that was new? It's exactly what we are now discussing regarding the reform of the European Union. So what is there? Usually it's more competencies of the European Parliament, which is exactly the case now. It's usually more qualified majority voting and much less unanimity, which is exactly the case for what we are discussing now. It's usually more areas covered by either exclusive competencies of the European Union or shared competencies with the member states, and fewer those where the EU has just, let's say, a coordinatory or advisory function. So it's exactly the case. Like in this case, we have common foreign and security policy that is one of those crucial areas which are discussed, I would say, most emotionally, because we are obviously now, we feel endangered by what is going on, obviously, in Ukraine. And the EU is also a kind of vulnerable if in the US we have a change of the president into Trump, which also makes us a bit more, I would say, concerned about how the EU should look in the nearest future, which would be the answer to that challenge as well, because it's challenging. Even if Joe Biden stays there, it's also not that clear that we can rely on the US as this guardian, you know, of the world all the time, or gendarme actually. So this is definitely challenging. But there are a few new things here which can be also interesting and should be taken into consideration, because they address the problems which the citizens, and here I refer to what has been said, to what Sebastian said about a conference and the results of the conference on the future of Europe. It was there. It was accused of being artificial, just, you know, dealing with opinions of people who are always there and, you know, they are so active and so on. Isn't it so in real life? It is exactly so in real life. Why not there? I mean, so, and if there are postulates that there should be more competencies in the European Parliament, there should be also more protection of democracy and the rule of law. It's not given forever. We shouldn't take it for granted. This has been also said. Sebastian mentioned that. And also Daniel mentioned that. So my dean, indeed, this is also a huge concern of the Europeans, and it should be addressed. And therefore, it's also one of the topics which are broadly discussed, whether there should be established more efficient mechanism than the one provided for in Article 7. And obviously, it's one of the subjects. And also the question of, let's say, the enlargement. Enlargement should be there. It most probably will be there because, well, sooner or later we will be insufficient to each other in this 27 countries group. We will need new markets. I know it sounds, you know, business-like, but that's true. We will need more markets. They will need our support and our investments. So it will be mutually profitable and benefitable. So that's what's there. Now, what do we see around regarding interests? What I see. So first of all, I see the German position, which looks as it has always looked. So more European Union, more Europe. And more the bad word beginning with F, namely federalization. You know, whenever I say any bad word, or my husband, we pay my son 70 euro cents. He's rich. But normally it's, you know, bad words which are really bad. But recently, I wrote an article about this F word, which is federalization. It's totally difficult to obviously pronounce for my son. But he said, Mom, you wrote an article about the F word, so now it's on the list. And whenever I use the word federalization of the EU, I pay him 70 cents. As I said, he's rich. So that's the bad word, because obviously it scares the Europeans who are very much into their sovereignty, and it is opposed to sovereignty. I don't know why, but it's somehow in the narrative it's used this way. But for the Germans, I would say sorry to speak on your behalf, being Polish, but this is how I read the German, let's say, position here, that it's about federalization of the EU. For the French, it's a kind of a nicer way of, nicer way of basically making this concentric circles based Europe, which would mean that there is the Eurozone as the first circle, then there is the rest of the EU, second circle, then there is the third circle, which is candidate countries and those closest surroundings, and then there is this European political, let's say, community, which would be 44 something countries with Azerbaijan and so on. So for France, I would say it's a kind of an excuse for trying to build Europe the way they want, but it does not look that bad. You know, it's not this different speed, multi-speed Europe and so on and so forth. Then we have Central and let's say Southern Europe, where I see certain skepticism, and for different reasons. But they are not that enthusiastic about the reform, but they are also not against it. So this is like they are waiting to see what will be on the table. Now what we have is what the European Parliament proposed, what this group of 12, what this Ready for 35 proposed. So there are different options, but basically the broadest one is the one of the European Parliament. So there are things to choose, which basically makes them like wait and see. And then we have Hungary, which are against, and we know why, because now they can oppose anything they want, and they are waiting to be bribed and to be offered something in exchange for, you know, resigning of blocking, sanctions on Russia and so on. And then we have this Eastern Europe, like Poland, among others, which is a sort of skeptical, but on the other hand sees the opportunity. So it's also, okay, we'll wait and see, but basically let's not say the F word, and let's not sell it to the people as a real reform. Let's make it something like, you know, more about Ukraine and the future, less about federalization and domination of Germany. And the domination of Germany is, I would say, one of the reasons why they are a sort of still not convinced. So this is the surroundings geographically and politically as I see it. And now what's the actual danger? The actual danger is that what is left of what the European Parliament proposed will be just a tiny something that will make no one happy. So that would be the first thing, which basically means that it will not be brave enough. Secondly, the fact that it will not be properly communicated to the people. And that's my biggest concern, that the European institutions will not be able to really present it as an incredible opportunity. And I would say that with any crisis, with every crisis actually in the EU, there is the window of opportunity opening widely. And yeah, it's usually communication that shuts a little bit, you know, the window. And even though it's there and we can use it, like it was about the reforms which Sebastian mentioned. So there were better maybe moments for that in the past, but we didn't use it. The windows were open and then we shut them. So now when it opens, we should definitely do everything to present it to the people in a way which will really show the opportunities, because that's exactly the window of opportunity. And maybe here I will stop for a second and give.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Renata. Mr. Truszczyński, when you look back from your long experience from in the very different positions, also, you know, as a part of the Polish government, Polish negotiator to the union, but also part of the senior management position within the Commission, right? So you have this both perspective. Would you say, is it a good time, bad time? Is it should we consider questions like time, or should we just go with the reforms?
Well, thank you very much, first of all, for inviting me here. And yes, indeed, as we discuss future of Europe here, other people are doing the same thing. 1,400 kilometers from here in Brussels, the Sherpas of our prime ministers are having on today's agenda, inter alia, an item which they call Future of Europe. And this most likely because they have to prepare the European Council of this coming Thursday, where the heads of state and governments are indeed tasked to reflect a bit on the future of Europe, most probably to try to find a formula, a golden formula, something more substantive, at least a bit than the language they were able to agree on in October last year when they last debated it in Granada. Something that will create a semi-opening and not closing the door, but not actually opening it fully towards perhaps further debates when the time is opportune, when the All the ingredients are almost there when we feel bold enough to actually really start it. So don't expect anything revolutionary, neither from today, nor this coming Thursday, nor indeed from the strategic agenda of the EU for the next 5 years that they are bound to have to agree upon by the end of June this year. Well, when I look back, I'm not going to bother you with personal history, of course. I remember having taken part in negotiations of the Constitutional Treaty 2003 through 2004. And even if we managed at the end of the day to agree on something substantive, I recall it as a deeply confrontational, very bruising exercise, something you don't really wish to enjoy any longer. I am not surprised to hear and to register from several member states that they do not really have much appetite for getting into the negotiation of next treaty again. The Conference on the Future of Europe, useful, necessary, substantive, creating several interesting openings, and yet it wasn't really welcomed by many of our member states. Everybody, I think, among those who look at Europe integration, recalls the almost immediate negative reaction of 13, no less than 13 out of 27, who thought it was awkward, it was timely, it was good to say no, outright no to any treaty change. Whatever comes, yes, we can try, but no treaty change, please. So the environment for doing something really substantive is not really opportune. It has not been like that over the last several years. And yet the responsibility of everybody who deals in politics, whether at European level or at member state level, is to produce sufficient quantity of public goods, goods of high quality. Do it in a timely fashion, because that's what the public administrations are for. That's what the political class is for. Now, are we doing enough in that regard? Are we asking ourselves even such a question? And my feeling is not sufficiently, not enough. We tend very often to focus on the institutional aspects, which are, of course, very important, but we do not pay enough attention to the discussion on how to improve the quality of governance in each of our member states. Wherever I look, I have not been dealing with that in a very intensive fashion, but I had many opportunities for, shall we say, direct experience, either in my own country or in other member states. And I see everywhere, practically almost everywhere, islands of excellence surrounded by lakes of mediocrity. There is uneven quality even in the best performing member states, and not to mention those who I don't want to name by name, but who are underperformers, even within the group of 27. Have we been doing enough of reflection and joint action to actually start reforming the member states to keep them on basically the same footing as the change which is being discussed regarding the European level, the level of European institutions? I would wish that when the next serious debate on the future of Europe comes, serious debates, and not just political slogans, likely to emerge from this Thursday's European Council, we need to look in more depth, in a more resolute, more structured, more enforcing fashion at that aspect of our shared reality. I could, go forever when we enter the field of case studies, examples, and all that stuff. But I will just stop here. That's with this point. The second point that I want to make is about the apparent low, insufficient interest of the member states to even start doing something halfway serious. the European Commission tabled modest proposals on where to step away from unanimity and move towards the realm of qualified majority in the field of common foreign and security policy 6 years ago, almost, in 2018. The European Commission did much the same thing regarding the gradual improvements, modernization of our joint action on taxation, with modest, stepwise, in 4 very modest consecutive steps, moving slightly away from full unanimity to tiny exceptions from that rule. What was and what remains the attitude, the stance of most of our member states? Well, it is downright negative. Let's not really touch it because it's too conflicting, it's too difficult, it's probably not going to bring anything good. A very recent example, we are dealing now, member states, since a few days ago, with the negotiating framework, draft negotiating framework for Ukraine. Important issue, there is one for a country like Poland. Now, we all know we need unanimity for that, to agree on that set of parameters on what to negotiate with Ukraine, what to request from Ukraine, what they have to deliver upon, all that stuff. Now, there was a modest suggestion from the European Commission. Why don't we go a bit more flexible on negotiations with the candidate countries? Why don't we step away from the requirement that there should be full unanimity at every tiny step of the road? Why don't we limit ourselves with unanimity requirements to the agreements on clusters of the negotiations? Not within each negotiating chapter, not within each step of each negotiating chapter. Well, some of our member states didn't like the idea. They want to keep the unanimity firm in their hands to be able to use this leverage when and as they feel it is fit to do so. And we have already seen earlier today the first demonstration of that, and I don't want to use the name of that country. Many people will guess which country is that, the black horse in our family, the maverick, the outcast, I would even say. But what to do about it? You cannot do anything much about it. Unanimity is there, stands firmly as obstacle in the middle of our road. So I do not see much room for early progress on anything. And yet, we have seen the European Union reacting fairly rapidly and in a relatively effective fashion when confronted with the real disaster, like the possible breakdown of the euro area between 2009 and 2012, like obviously the COVID and the aftermath of the first hit that we have taken in early 2020. So I wouldn't wish Europe to be confronted again with a disaster of similar magnitude to finally bang heads together and emerge with something decisive, a breakthrough, real development for the better. But I feel that we, of course, need it. We feel need it, and we could find several areas from among those 49 proposals formulated by our citizens at the end of the conference on the future of Europe. I feel it is bad that member states didn't really wish to pick anything of it up. The European Commission did so in a modest way, limited way, little progress there, better than nothing, of course, but insufficient. And well, what shall I say? I've been practicing European integration for well over 50 years. I would wish us to be at some point much farther down the road and towards bigger, how shall I put it? bigger federalism. Why not? Federalism.
The afterwards.
70 cents. 70 cents.
70 cents. Yeah, thank you, Mr. Troszczyński. As we are almost on the eve of the parliamentary elections, I mean the elections to the European Parliament, I want to speak with you about the public support, the public opinion, right, which is important for both, for the internal reforms and for the EU enlargement. When we look at the numbers in our countries and all around Europe, the numbers are not that positive, optimistic that some of us would wish to have them. So I want to ask you, so what will be your recommendation for our governments, for opinion leaders? You know, how to speak, how to get the support of the wider public, right, of the voters, for these big changes that Europe, I mean, on the one hand needs to go through, and on the other hand, we can understand that people are afraid of.
Thank you. I think that what I mentioned in my initial statement, that Spitzenprogramm instead of Spitzenkandidaten, and I mean, it's an absurd discussion. We have not even, you don't know who to vote for technically in certain cases if you want really that Spitzenkandidat or not. I give you the example. I can say this as I mentioned. I'm from Bavaria, and the last Spitzenkandidat of the European People's Party was from a regional Bavarian party that you could only vote for in Bavaria. So 26 members, at that time 27 still, because we didn't part ways with the UK then. 27 member states could not vote anyways for him, but then 15 Bundesländer in Germany could not vote for that person. And I mean, we talk about, we want more citizens' involvement, democratic deficits of the European Union that need to be overcome, because there are plenty of them. And then we bring a Spitzenkandidaten system that just stresses, again, another democratic deficit, because, I mean, we all know who became then the Commission president. Not that I'm unhappy that Ursula von der Leyen became president instead of Manfred Weber, but that's a different story. In any case, so I think we should discuss this. Yeah? We should discuss this much more in the countries, and we also should discuss this much more cross countries. It sounds like skiing, but like cross-border, because we are not talking about a European election. We are talking about 27 national elections happening over the span of 6th until 9th of June. And if we not arrive at a point where we finally come to terms to, and I'm not even talking about reform, which would be necessary to have a transnational list, etc. But if we need to start to talk about cross-cutting issues that are relevant for more than just the one member state and the one bubble discussion that we have here. And institutional reform should be part of it, because let them decide. Yeah? Go out with and say, I want this, and then go out, no, we shouldn't do this. But then we would talk about a European topic. We are talking about, I don't know what the narrative of the elections in Poland are going to be, but we will not be talking about relevance that is there for Germany, for Austria, and Poland. We will talk about what is necessary in the similar countries, and this is something that we should arrive at, and this is the responsibility of the parties to have a proper European program and focus on European topics during the elections.
Thank you very much. Here I will not agree on a few things, but before I don't agree,
Very good.
I'll begin with adding one geographical group, which I forgot in my previous statement. It's the candidate countries. So those like Ukraine, Moldova, Western Balkans, they want so much the reform of the European Union. They are those who will it the most. Why? Because for them it's a kind of guarantee that they are treated seriously. Because if we speak about the reform, it means we speak about also the enlargement. And so this is definitely something that they expect. And we mustn't forget about that when we present also those reforms to the people. The second thing which I would like to mention, and here not agree with Sebastian, is that I've never been actually a big fan of Spitzenkandidaten. I mean, I agree to some extent, but to some extent disagree. I don't know what the whole fuss is about. I mean, about what? More democracy because there are some exclusive people from an exclusive forum, which is the European Parliament. Yeah, but at the end of the day, and here I would like to make a really strong statement, what the Europeans think they want is more European democracy. What they actually want is more European efficiency. And you know, democracy and efficiency are... I wouldn't say they go together necessarily. So the balance between efficiency and democracy is really important. And where could we find it? In my opinion, in communication, in the narrative. We should present it as democratic and efficient, and it should somehow work. And now how to do it? Mr. Ambassador? No, just joking. But maybe through the stories, I don't know, if we think about the program, let's make a story about each of the reforms. Let's show the examples where Hungary blocked something important, what damage it caused that there was unanimity, what we lost because of that. Someone should just gather it, pack it into a story that could be presented to the people in the European Union. And it should be packed for the Germans, for the French, separately, of course, in micro-targeting, separately for the Polish, and probably also separately for, I don't know, the Ukrainians. So, this is, I think, something that is the most important problem, because without tackling this efficiency, Mr. Ambassador spoke about that, actually. We need efficiency from the European Union. We want the business to be done. But then we don't know how to speak about that, so we come up with all those democratic aspects and so on, because maybe this is how we see it on the national level. And the last point would be the topics. We usually speak about national topics before European elections, and it blurs the whole debate. I'm not even sure if it's that bad, after all. Maybe we shouldn't treat it as something necessarily bad. But at the end of the day, we should, even if we speak about national topics, we should connect them to the European Union somehow and think how it influences the EU. And when we speak about national topics, we have in Poland, let's say, themes which are important for the Polish, but we have also let's say, pan-European topic, which is migration. You know, in Poland, migration is, it's problematic, also because of the visa scandals and so on. But it is the topic which European populists are only waiting to raise. So we should also consider what to do about those pan-European topics, which are important on European level, maybe how to put more national clothes on these pan-European topics. So do something that we actually usually criticize. Why not? Why not to make it more national that is pan-European and more pan-European that is national? It's not so easy, I know. I mean, I don't have the answer, but we should just probably work in every possible group, every possible circle.
Thank you, Mr. Ambassador. What would be your advice?
Well, my advice would be to go at it and to really start debating and presenting global challenges and European challenges to the general public. We are 70 days away from the European elections. Have you registered any, shall we say, more intensive, more frequent, more visible information from our politicians to the general public regarding what Poland stands for in these elections, what individual parties would like to see over the course of the next 5 years in the European Parliament, and regarding the future of Europe in general, nothing much really, nothing much. And time is running out. I have seen a bit of a political manifesto of CDU some days ago. I registered only two things. They are squarely against collective debt to be made by the European Union. They are against any repeat of the next generation funding. It's a good instrument, but that's not having any more of it. This is how I understood it. Well, that is a point of view, probably not shared by everybody in the EU, but it is, in a sense, European. Do we in Poland have a similar attitude, similar appetite to engage and to discuss and to present issues which are of European nature and are at European level? I fear we are not. And in that sense, we are at the mercy of sorts from all kinds of populists, even if for a long time, for many, many months, people who analyze the situation have seen it coming gradually, but more and more forcefully. There will be less and less enthusiasm for the Green Deal overall. There will be less and less appetite among the farmers for their share regarding the delivery under the Green Deal. And the populists everywhere will try hard to capitalize on it, to join the bandwagon, and to get as much political currency of it as possible in the forthcoming elections. I'm not saying it is too late to confront that with meaningful, forward-looking, realistic presentation of why we need a Green Deal, also in the area of farming, in the area of agriculture. Yet another opportunity for the EU member states to have done something useful in the run-up to European elections, and yet another missed opportunity. Okay, there is still not too late to develop a meaningful debate on the future of European defense. As part of NATO, of course, goes without saying, but still more European, more united, possibly a defense union, possibly a real joint procurement and joint purchase of armaments on European soil, more strategic autonomy, more resilience, more reliability of European industry confronted with challenges from outside. Well, there is so much useful stuff that one could discuss, present in a relatively simple fashion, and to tell people we are all in one the same European boat. We are all in it together. Either we find useful responses for the nearest future, or we hang separately. However, I have no special, hope that this will start materializing. Also not in our country. I would wish to see a more proactive, more forceful, more visible pro-European arguments coming from our current governments. They are doing a lot. I do not deny, of course. I'm very happy to see the renewed presence of Poland where it matters all across Europe, and more say that we seem to be having as participant, as partner in the game. But I would wish to see more of the things that I just discussed.
Thank you. As we heard so many times to discuss, to debate, I want to invite you now to debate with us. Yes, thank you. I saw it coming that there are questions from the audience. As an experienced moderator, I will hold the microphone and you will use it, but asking question or making comment.
Introduce you first.
Hi. My name is Monica. I'm a second year student at the University of Warsaw. So time is of the essence. I will speak plainly. Please forgive my deviance from formal and informal norms. I am pro-democratic, pro-EU, pro-integration. Effort is achievable through long-term, transparent planning. Yes, the EU is not brave enough. It is high noon. We need to be proactive, not reactive. Therefore, the reform I propose is ideological. We, as defenders of democracy, need to realize we are losing the war of hearts and minds badly. Anti-democratic actors like Cambridge Analytica, Putin, Trump have won the battle. We need to unite in an effort to prevent further democratic backsliding. I believe we need to fix the foundations first, weed out fascist tendencies, turning Maslow's pyramid upside down, starting with self-actualization as the base. When you start stripping those layers away, the self-actualization, sense of belongingness, the community ties, up to threatening resources, that is when tendencies will turn violent. The 2030 environmental standards are the powder keg, right? Farmers protesting is our wake-up call. That is food, that is resources. No food, people starve, people riot. Democracy dead. So my questions are, what is the plan? What is the plan to protect jobs? What is the plan to protect each other and democratic values? Thank you. Another question, another comment? We will collect some and then we will come back to the panel.
Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Norman Bartkowski, and let's just assume that United States, under the authority of Donald Trump as the possible next president, discontinuate the military support for Europe within the NATO. And my question is possible for Europe, the European Union, to create the alternate defense structure to protect the entire continent and also European community against the threats from the outside. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm coming. Thank you for your input and the interesting information. I'm Leonie Werner from the University of Mainz, and I was wondering about your really optimistic view on the possible treaty reform, because I feel like, especially you really mentioned that we could do vertical and horizontal enlargement of the EU at the same time, and I was wondering how realistic is the treaty reform, because I've heard other political scientists say that many states of Europe didn't know what they were signing with the Treaty of Lisbon already in 2009 and how many competences they would give away. So since then, I would say that Eurosceptical parties and also far-right parties in Europe rather increased than decreased. And if we started such a treaty reform, what would the signal be if the treaty was a failure? So is it a good idea to start this process now? Okay, thank you. We have big questions. There's fourth one coming. I'm also coming.
Okay. She's my wife.
Yeah.
I'm Tomasz Piątek, investigative journalist and writer. I'd like you to ask, how do you think if there is a possibility in the future of creation of the European Union's counterintelligence service that could fight for the survival of the European Union against the influence of Russia and China and other enemies in an effective way.
Okay. Do it.
Can you answer some of them?
Okay, so in November last year, 2023, the European Parliament has voted for certain amendments of the treaties. However, as we've seen, they did not vote for the ones that were considered the most crucial, like the ones on the majority voting in the areas of common security policy. However, do you think that it is like already a step forward, and maybe this kind of amendment would be enough, which means there is no need to create a new treaty and we can just implement some small amendments into the current one?
Okay, I would say it's enough. All the questions and topics for our three guests. Or there's a last one by Jolanta Szymańska, one of the leading experts on European Union in Poland, so I need to give her the opportunity also to ask.
Thank you very much. Actually, I don't have any questions. I would like to share my comment because I participate very closely in the debate on the reform of the European Union and European institutions among experts, but also politicians. And I fully agree with Ambassador Truszczyński that there is no appetite even for parasol clauses in the European Union. So not only the question on treaty reform is premature, but also any debate actually about institutional changes are very fast are just rejected very fast when they just come at the European Council or the Council Institutional Council. So just to give you an example, 1 month ago it was a proposal presented by Germany and Slovenia about reducing vetoes, 18 vetoes in enlargement policy, the technical voting on opening chapters. So it's not even the level of parasol clauses. It's something under the level of parasol clauses. And this actually proposal was also rejected openly by 4 countries, but many others, like Poland, for example, would also support this veto. So, frankly speaking, I don't see any space for institutional changes currently in the European Union. And about this federalism and federal approach from Germany, I would say that Germany and France was actually first to reject the option to put European Parliament resolution under discussion in the Council. So proposal from Parliament is going too far for Germans even. So, well, frankly speaking, treaty reform is completely not possible. Even parasol clauses are, in my opinion, not really under discussion. Maybe in the next after elections, but not really sure. Thank you.
Thank you. It was really the last one. Okay, I'm coming back to my panelists and give you the opportunity to pick up on the topics that you want to address, and because they were very different ones, from defense, counterintelligence to treaty changes. Yes, sir. Sebastian?
Yeah, sure. Okay. I'm going to be very annoying comment on each and every thing that has been mentioned. First of all, a comment on the comments. There is no appetite. Well, there's a saying in German, the appetite comes with eating. Yeah? So maybe we start eating and then the appetite comes. And because what you say, and I understand, it is the case, yeah? And I'm aware of that. But we've been saying this for over a decade now. And maybe later, maybe next time. Well, it's never going to happen if we do it next time. And you're very right with that veto steps. Yeah? We don't need to do anything because it's not written anywhere. We just do it. It's a practice we do, which is absolutely nonsensical because enlargement is a supranational process. We can decide on the national level if we open negotiations. We can decide, so if we give a candidate status, if we open negotiations, if we close them, and then ratify the treaty for accession. That's 4 times, that's enough. We don't need 80 times, as it has been mentioned. I would even go so far to say 1 time is enough. You don't need any member state involvement because we mentioned all the one pariah state. There have been others that have been vetoing enlargement steps. Look at Bulgaria, look at France, look at Germany, look at the Netherlands. That has been the case. So let's start, and then the appetite will come maybe. Wouldn't it be enough to change things through passerelle clauses? What the EP voted on, is that enough? Sure, if we just want to basically maintain everything, maybe it's enough. But the point here would be to say, no, we make us ready for the future. And therefore, let's talk about what is possible. And if we can't bring that through, and if it fails, we shouldn't see it as a failure. I used to advocate since 2018 and sort of became radicalized maybe in that process for a real deep treaty reform. I did that in a Think Visegrad fellowship. I did that at Globsec in Bratislava. And I would go so far to say, let's do a European-wide referendum at the end of it. And if you are voting against it, you're out of the European Union. I wouldn't propose it in the current geopolitical environment anymore, but we have a plan B. That's the Treaty of Lisbon. But we aim for A. We want something better. Yeah, and we have had Lisbon, we've had Nice, we've had Maastricht, we've had Rome. It's time to have maybe a treaty of Warsaw, of course. Or Prague. Yeah. I came from Krakow. I know. Anyway, whatever. Yeah. Time to also represent the new geographic realities within the European Union. The possibility of counterintelligence. I mean, there's the Stratcom project that may be to again deal with a problem that has been there for over a decade. I remember there were talks in Altbach after the first Trump victory, and how we need to gear up against the influence of social media. And some things were done, and then comes along a car manufacturer, buys a social media platform, and now spreads fake news on a daily basis, influencing even German politics. Or there's an Austrian neo-Nazi arrested in Switzerland, and he questions it. Where have we arrived? This is insanity that we give the power to people like that failed PayPal body. And realistically, a treaty reform, if it fails, I mentioned we have a possibility here. The treaty, the second Trump presidency, and the challenges for the EU. I would say we were again looking at the Biden victory and saying like, we dodged that bullet, and now we have 4 years to relax. Instead of saying no, that buys us 4 years, and in these 4 years we need to gear up, be ready, because it might come back. Yeah. Apart from the fact that I'm very disappointed in how the US try to protect their democracy and their institutions overall. That Trump can even be a candidate is saying something about the political class, but also about the people, of course. I mean, that's a different story. Anyway, the thing is, to be honest, we can't even do enlargement if we don't have the US as a stable pillar in NATO. Because there's Article 42.7 in the Treaty of Lisbon that obliges us to use all our means at our disposal to defend the country if they are attacked. If we enlarge, we will not be able to fulfill that promise without Article 5 in NATO, which brings in the United States. So the thing is, the time is running. We need to gear up, and not until Trump becomes maybe president again, but until we can make enlargement happen. This is necessary. And again, the time was 4 years ago. The best time was 4 years ago. The necessary time should be now. And finally, what is the plan? I mean, I liked what you mentioned. Yeah, you should run. There's plenty of opportunities to participate here. I mean, you have the local elections apparently, which is maybe overshadowing a little bit the discussion about the European parliamentary elections here. But use this. This is the one answer that I would say. What is the plan? Get involved. Don't let others that repeat the same things, the impossibilities, that we have always done it like this, their mantra, get involved. This is the one thing that I would say. What is the plan? The second thing is, and I see Malvina glancing nervously because every time farmers are mentioned, I have a very, very controversial opinion maybe upon this, because here I really disagree with you. If you are not able to produce without being subsidized, then something is wrong in your business model. And there's other providers that are waiting to support. So instead of blocking roads, dumping manure on streets, endangering people, and at the same time condemning young people that are gluing themselves to the streets, that are arrested in Austria, in Germany, if they do that as a climate protest. This is a dual moral that cannot be held and should not be held. So be a better farmer. And of course, I understand that there is pressure coming, that there are challenges here. But sorry, the biggest part of the EU budget, I mean, we've restructured the parts, but still, if you look at it, the biggest part of the budget still is agricultural subsidies. And how can a sector survive, any other sector survive, that has been subsidized for 70 years by the European communities, the European Union? And yeah, I think I probably stop here before I'm thrown out of the country.
Thank you very much. I'll reply just some of the questions because Sebastian has addressed really all of them. First of all, to reply, Yola, after the European elections, the topic will come back. Obviously, before the European elections, everyone is afraid. Everyone, literally. So one of those are afraid that it will go too far, the others that it will not go far enough, and so on. But before the European elections, everyone is afraid. But the topic will come back, because if we don't talk about that, if we don't make our decisions, it will be Putin or Trump. And I'm not sure if we want them to decide for the European Union. So I would rather, being a leader of any of the 27, I would actually still take the challenge, including Donald Tusk, who is now a sort of avoiding the topic as well. And we all know why, but on the other hand, it will come back and he will also have to say something at the end of the day. So the topic will come back, in my opinion. Then, whether we can use the passerelle clauses and avoid the treaty reform, no. because, it will be insufficient, plus we will not enlarge. We are going to accept, if we go this path that we've planned to go, we will accept almost 70 million people. So many countries, it's impossible without the real reform. Each time we will have to, do all these equilibristics to take any decision. That's insane. We cannot just do that. And if anyone is planning to do that, should think about staying in the EU. Maybe elsewhere is also, nice. No? So, and then speaking about the counterintelligence service and so on, when I take a look at, and when I talk to the people from the European Prosecutor's Office and so on, I think that without Putin or Trump, this will be tough to go far with that. But since they are so close and the danger is really there, I think that sooner or later the European Union will have to think about that as well. Now, the question about the will of the member states, there will be a problem, a serious problem. But here we probably come with this, enhanced cooperation, maybe something like that. Although I'm a big opponent of any kind of differentiated integration, in this case, this may sort of contribute to the actual safety of the European Union. So I think here something must be done, if not on the level of the whole European Union within enhanced cooperation. It will probably be built for those countries which will have enough courage. Thank you. Well, I will not answer the question of my student. You're brilliant, but the question is way too tough. But since I mentioned that to Mr. Ambassador and he said, no, it's easy. So, Mr. Ambassador, please take the challenge.
Thank you very much. No, I actually meant the counterintelligence question.
Sorry.
That was the easy one, not the first one. Okay, I will not go through the entire list. Time is running out. Let me handle the Trump question, perhaps. Well, I am among those who believe that not everything is lost. And we do not have to live with this constant fear that it is inevitable, it will happen, and then there will come doom and gloom. Okay, but if it comes, even if there are no adults in the room this time, even if he is allowed to deploy his worst instincts and learning from his past inability and mistakes, he will go about wrecking everything rapidly. It still somehow does not mean that NATO is doomed as a framework for military cooperation. Obviously, we are unable to stand on our own 2 feet without NATO. And without the US in NATO, we have no nuclear shield worth its name. We have no proper cyber defense. We have no defense against an enemy attacking our satellites. We have no satellite intelligence reconnaissance, which would be comparable halfway to what the Americans can deploy. We have no strategic air transport. We do not have several other things that Americans are the only ones to be able to supply NATO with. So, yes, it would be done hard. On the other hand, do not forget that Europe has been doing more than a bit since 2015, 2016, and I will not go through the list here, which I could do, of course, but it's beside the point. Let me just stay with this simple statement. We are doing more and more, and even if it is no match to our presence and ability to use NATO, it is still something that, one, has to be done, second, is being done, three, elevates permanently our collective resilience to outside threats. Counterintelligence, no way, Mr. Piontek, that's not doable, really. We have had citizen for many years already within the structures of the European Union, and it is a useful platform on which intelligence services can exchange data and inputs, but of course it has its obvious limits. You are the expert more than I am, so you know what I'm talking about. I do not really see much room for qualitative improvements of cooperation between the intelligence services of the EU member states. Second, I do not see anybody getting rid of national sovereignty on this and entrusting it to someone outside the country's borders. That's simply not doable. That would be no. The way I see it, the powers that be, whether in Poland or Germany, France, elsewhere, will not allow such a step. That's out of the question. Now, treaty reform. We are, of course, debating the possibility of next treaty reform, but the EU has reformed itself several times already. It's not impossible. It is doable, of course. It is perfectly possible. We have added dozens and dozens of areas where things moved to co-decision with the European Parliament, with each next treaty. With each next treaty, we have been moving slightly away from unanimity towards qualified majority voting. Just a few areas remain where unanimity is still the king. Just a few, a tiny handful. And indeed, there is obviously need for treaty reform if you, for instance, want to change the ratio between the shared and exclusive competences. I, for one, would very warmly welcome us being able to move to exclusive powers of the EU level on biodiversity. And along with that, the entire area of environment protection. I see ample arguments in favor of doing that. But for that, you would need a bit of a treaty reform. It cannot be done by any passerelle. It would not be sufficient. But in the meanwhile, passerelle, several of them, makeshift tool, useful if you have political collective will to use it. To our collective memory, it has not been adapted even once. In the CFSCP area, twice did the countries, individual countries, use the constructive abstention, which is a very minor instrument and which should be used in a broader fashion. But even there, even if that is extremely modest, it is not being done. So there is not enough political will to use passerelle. But it is necessary. But it is needed. It is absolutely needed. It is absolutely needed. So can we reform without changing the treaties? Yes, it is being done. I'm in favor of intense cooperation, by the way. I am in favor of that. But I see the practical limits, and not just those imposed by the treaties, those that are dictated by the political considerations of those who want to participate and those who want to stay outside. It has proven to be a tool of limited usability and not much reach. And yet we need to try continue doing that. I would even be in favor of member states which want to go farther on integration to do it alone by way of a next separate treaty, leaving the Treaty on the European Union and the Treaty on the Functioning of the European Union behind as empty shells in which only a handful of countries will be left behind to sort it out among themselves, whereas all the others will move upwards to a higher echelon, higher level of integration. It's utterly unrealistic, of course. course, other than realistic, even if in academic world it has been advanced a number of times as a possible avenue forwards. But the older I am, the more sympathy I feel for even such instruments to be attempted if nothing else really works. And we are stuck. We are basically stuck. We have been stuck since 2009 with the unwillingness and inability to address the obvious needs. We have done this and that. COVID is a good case in point, of course. Our collective reaction to Russia's aggression against Ukraine is smaller but yet useful example that we can do things together and fast as well. But more needs to be done. There are so many useful things that are contained in this proposal from the European Parliament. I'm not saying it should be all taken on board in one go, everything. It's not that. But if you look at it in more detail, and if you have time to discuss it in detail, one by one, then you may come to the conclusion, yes, why not? Let's try it by way of an example here and there. Yes, it is necessary. It is necessary.
Thank you, Mr. Ambassador. The topic will be back, as we heard, right, at least after the elections. And we will be also back with our events, also on European issues, although even before the elections, actually. But yeah, please thank you with me to our distinguished guests, our panelists, Mr. Truszczyński, Renata Minkowska-Norkiene, and Sebastian Schöfer. It was a pleasure to discuss with you. I know that we could continue it for longer, and there are definitely more topics that could be tackled. But thank you for the time. Thank you for your coming. Thank you for your attention. Thank you for your questions and spending with us this Tuesday evening. In the middle of the week. Thank you again, and welcome to the next events in different constellations with our partners and as the Institute of Public Affairs. Thank you very much.